Here is a quick overview of the Unit 3 study guide, criminal law. It's a very long unit, many chapters that are involved in this unit. So here's a quick overview of what is expected for the test. So the first question here, what is the difference between an accessory before the fact and an accessory after the fact? We talked about different key players in a crime. We have the principal and the accomplice. We also have those two. So accessory before the fact, someone that helps the crime before, tries to plan it, and things like that. After the fact, you're helping after, maybe getting someone away, hiding that person, but you know a crime occurred. Some differences between solicitation and conspiracy, and who would be guilty in conspiracy, who's guilty in solicitation. Solicitation is trying to get someone to commit a crime for you, so you're trying to get someone to do something for you. Conspiracy is when you are involving yourself, you are conspiring, you are talking with someone else to commit a crime. What must a person do to avoid this? You must avoid getting in trouble in a conspiracy by telling the authorities, the police, before the crime actually happens. What must exist in order for a crime of omission to occur? So, this is when something you fail to do something. And your big example is if you don't pay your taxes, you're going to get in trouble. How are motive and state of mind different? Motive is why you do something. So I stole a Snicker bar because I was hungry and I didn't have money. Your state of mind is knowing you're doing something wrong. I know it is wrong to go into that store to steal that Snicker bar. For the definitions, you can easily look those up in your notes, in your textbook, and fill those out on your own. Chapter 9. So what are key differences between criminal and non-criminal homicides? So this is a chapter about crimes against people. Criminal homicide is murder, which means that killing is done with a malice or intent. You wanted to do this. You had some intention of doing. Non-criminal is killing that is justifiable, excusable, maybe done by a police officer, army, self-defense, things like that. What are the differences between involuntary manslaughter and negligent homicide then? Involuntary manslaughter is an unintentional killing resulting from conduct so reckless that it causes extreme danger or death. Okay? Negligent homicide, on the other hand, is causing the death through failure to exercise reasonable care. So involuntary manslaughter, doing something so reckless, driving at speeds that you know are dangerous, going through a neighborhood, running someone over, versus negligent homicide, maybe checking your radio and then you ran into someone. Can anyone commit arson to any property? Yes, because if you light your own house on fire and you want to collect insurance, you can't do that. You will be charged with a crime. What are the elements of larceny? So carrying away property of another with the intent to steal it. Okay, you didn't take it off them, but you took someone's property away. Maybe you're in a house and you took like an Xbox and you walked away with it. You knew you had that intention of stealing it. Elements of robbery then: immediate possession, taking from a person using force. So someone has that item on them, you go up to them, you force them to give it to you. That is robbery. What is the difference between forgery and uttering? Forgery is a crime in which a person makes or alters a writing or document, so maybe a different name, changing a document. Uttering is offering this document to someone, saying it's real when you know it is fake. Chapter 11, so looking at defenses. What are two ways that a defendant can show that he or she is not guilty of crime without raising a defense? So you can say, hey, there was no crime committed here, or your alibi. You don't have to defend yourself. You're like, hey, I was here. There's no way I could have done it. What typically happens to a person found not guilty by reason of insanity? They usually go to a mental institution. What are three types of excusable or justifiable defenses? So you can say it was self-defense. You can say you're defending your property, or you can say you are defending other people. Chapter 12, compare probable cause and reasonable suspicion. A big section of our unit was spent on Fourth Amendment and search and seizure and the investigation phase. So what can police do based on each one? So probable cause is having reasonable belief, known personally or through reliable sources, that something happened, that a crime had been committed. And police need probable cause to take you out of your car and search it. Police need probable cause to detain you and then arrest you. Reasonable suspicion is evidence that justifies an officer in stopping and questioning. So hey, something shady was going on around this area, might be some criminal activity, and there's some reasonable suspicion that maybe they were involved, you can question, but it's less evidence than probable cause. And that reasonable suspicion is what students will use are under at school. Police can ask questions based on reasonable suspicion and can arrest based on probable cause. What types of searches are prohibited? So under the Fourth Amendment, unreasonable searches and seizures are prohibited under the Fourth Amendment. When can police execute search warrants? And when a judge issues it, and it says the date, maybe possible time, different parameters, and how they can actually execute it. List and explain the 8 different ways that the police can conduct warrantless searches. So, if you are arrested for something, they can search you. There's a stop and frisk that they can for their safety. Consent, you say, yeah, you can search me. Border and airport searches are much different. You don't have as many rights there. They can search vehicles and things like that. Vehicle searches based on probable cause. So maybe you see something in the car, like a weapon of some sort, maybe illegal drugs or a drug sniff, and you can smell drugs. If it's in plain view, if you see something in plain view, you can do that. If you are running from the police, then they can search you automatically. And then if there's an emergency situation, they can probably enter a building, a car, or search just for their safety to help people out. When may school officials search a student? And that is when they have any type of reasonable suspicion. Chapter 13 then. What information does an accused person have to provide at a booking? So when you get arrested and you're going to the police station, you're booked, you need to give your name, address, date of birth, maybe your job, any details about previous arrests. How are pretrial motions different for a felony and a misdemeanor? So you're going into it, when they read you the charges, you don't have to make a plea, guilty or not guilty, at the initial appearance for a felony case. So at a misdemeanor, you say, yep, I'm guilty, yep, I'm not guilty. At a felony case, you don't have to do that. The purpose of bail, so is for you pay a little bit of money and saying that I will come back to court. If you don't, you lose that money. So it's kind of like to make sure people show back up to court. At an arraignment, what happens if the accused pleads guilty? Well, they're going to set the date for sentencing. You're going to come back to the judge, and they're going to provide the sentence. If they say not guilty, then they're going to set the date for the trial. Different pretrial motions, things that lawyers can do. There's 4 of them to examine certain evidence. I want more evidence. Maybe the prosecutors have this, and we would like to look at it. They can postpone to a different day. They need more time to do some research. They can change the venue of the trial. They say, hey, we don't like our odds. There's a lot of bias here. We want to go to a different location. Or to suppress evidence, they don't think evidence should be used in the case. It can become the exclusionary rule, get rid of certain evidence in that case. Chapter 14, what does due process ensure? It ensures a fair trial or hearing. What are some pretrial or potential problems with peremptory challenges? Peremptory challenges are for the jury. You don't have to give a reason. You can get rid of a juror. They might favor one side or the other. This cannot be done based on race, sex, gender, ethnicity. You cannot do that. You try to avoid that. What happens if a defendant cannot afford a lawyer? One will be appointed to them. Last couple things here, Chapter 15, what are the 4 main reasons for criminal sentencing? So these are very important. Retribution. You want to kind of give someone revenge for the wrongdoing. You should be punished for doing something wrong. Deterrence. You want to punish someone to discourage them from doing it again. Rehab. Change the person's behavior. Or incapacitation. This person just needs to be isolated. They're a danger to society. What types of rights are limited behind bars? Voting, you have less privacy. You can be searched whenever you want, so warrantless searches. And that is your Unit 3 study guide with the answers. Again, look up the vocab terms in your textbook or on the notes.